Welcome to the Two Togs Talk podcast, where two photographers with hundreds of weddings worth of experience give you meaningful insights into what works and what doesn't, reveal juicy wedding nightmares from actual weddings, and what you can do to make your wedding day more magical. He's Garrett, the old pro, who still cries at daddy-daughter dances and who definitely steals an extra cupcake on his way out.
She's Gianna, the young gun, who's always got the extra safety pin or granola bar handy and who is currently planning her own wedding. Together, we can help make your biggest day more memorable, more relaxed, and more personal to you and your vision. Hey friends, welcome back to the Two Togs Talk podcast. We are going to go in a lot of different directions today. So buckle your seatbelts, grab your markers in your wedding planning binders, and let's get this thing going. What we are going to do today is we are going to bounce around to 40 random wedding tips that we have compiled over years of being at parties and being at weddings and kind of seeing some things that worked and some things that don't. And we just kind of made these into really punchy, shorthand tips on things that you need to add to your wedding. Okay, so we've talked about some of these things in the past, but we're going to just kind of go down through the list here. We have 40 wedding tips from all sorts of directions that hopefully will help make your day awesome. So let's start at the top. Number one. And by number one, this isn't the biggest tip. It's just the first one that we came up with. So,
And by no means are they in any sort of order whatsoever. So
imagine a
use them as you
squirrel
will.
with a crayon making a list. That's what we came up with here.
Yes.
We have, we're all over the map. However, it's good details, good information. So, tip number one, make sure to use a crochet hook to secure the buttons on the back of your wedding dress.
Yes.
Saves manicures, saves nails, saves all sorts of things.
Yes. It takes an absurdly long amount of time, depending on how many buttons you have. If you have 2 or 3, it's not going to be the hugest difference. But we've seen wedding dresses that have those buttons that go all the way down that are not always the fake little pretty ones. And you actually have to loop the thing around the button on every single one of them. So using a crochet hook, it's a small hole. It's easier to pull it across. Yes, it saves your manicures. It saves your arthritis and all the other good things that go along with buttons.
This actually came about because I saw one of the grandmas one time that actually had an old school button hook, right? So this used to be a thing way back in the day, but if you Google button hooks, it's super expensive. Crochet hook, you can buy a bag of them for like $5, right?
Mhm.
So, but the idea of being able to make that process more efficient and easier, usually it's a mom and they're like, I can't see what I'm doing. Here we go.
Yeah.
So, so they do this thing, but once you get in the rhythm with it, it is awesome. It's pretty funny. Usually those wedding dresses that have 30 or 40 buttons on the back of them, I make the joke with them about buying the groom a seam ripper as their wedding gift so they can
Yep.
get in and out of the thing. Anyway, whatever. Okay, so yes, make sure that you have an extra crochet hook on hand with you at your wedding so that you can put your back of your dress together if you have a lot of buttons in the back.
Mhm.
Okay.
Tip number 2, this one saves so much time on your wedding, and it is to use both sides of your buffet table to get people through your food line quicker.
You would be surprised at how many people slam their food tables up against the wall or in a spot where you can't access both sides of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got 250 people that are trying to get through a food line and you've only got one line, I'll tell you from very much experience here that it takes a while to get through that process.
Mm-hmm.
The most efficient one that I ever saw, there was close to 600 people at this place, right? This was a wedding for a
Butte
buddy.
wedding.
Yeah. Well, this is a different one. This was actually up on the High Line. Buddy of mine from college, they had like 600 people from town. They were both locals that were getting married, both had families that knew everybody. So they had 600 people at this wedding and they had 6 different tables with 2 sides on each side of the table. So do the math on like how many lines they could form through this thing. They actually just did pizzas. They had to use, they ordered pizzas from like 3 different places in town to be able to get enough pizza for this place. But they put people on both sides of the tables. They got 650 people or 620 something people that were there through the food line. And I'm not kidding you, like 15 minutes.
That's insane.
Most of the time it takes, a half hour to 45 minutes to get 100 people through a food line at some of
Yeah.
these things, right? So when you are designing your layout, when you are talking to your caterer, make sure that they have the ability to put food on both sides of the table so that you can get people through that system as quickly as you can. Because
If you're using a food truck, don't. No.
not for your main meal, right?
Yeah, food trucks are great, and we'll add in a tip about those ones later. But just if you're thinking about the time it takes to get people through a food line, that is going to be your least time efficient. We've been to a wedding that used a food truck, and it was great food, great service, and everything. But then you have to think about the fact that now you're going up one at a time to a window on a food truck.
To the same window.
To the same window.
Not like a drive-through where you've got the intro window and the outro window. Like this is all one
Yep.
place.
And then you give your order or tell them what you ordered. Then they hand you the plate, and now you're adding like that's a minute per person. So if you've got that many people, might not be the option for you. I mean, if it's a small backyard thing, that's a great option. But for more number of people,
The bigger the party, the more efficient you got to think about it.
Yes.
And the more ways you have to figure out how to get people through lines quickly. And buffet tables are usually one of those longer lines. So putting people on both sides, boom, off you go. Way more efficient. Okay.
Yep.
So tip number 3, we tell all of our clients this. Make sure that you go on a date the week of your wedding with your soon-to-be spouse. But the caveat is that you are not allowed to talk about any wedding day, wedding planning stuff at that date.
mm-hmm.
Usually by that point of the process, you guys have talked about weddings for maybe a year or more, right? Like you guys have gone through a lot of things. And at this point, a lot of the balls are already starting to roll. You're starting to get pieces of the puzzle put in place, but you have to come back and remember why we're here. What are we doing this for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And going on a date the week of your wedding is a very important part of that.
Yes. Side tip, just to add a little bit more fun throughout your wedding planning. I found this really fun idea. It was most definitely on Instagram, so no hate. But it is to go on a date, the date of your wedding every month. So I'm getting married on the 6th. So every 6th of the month, we're going to go on a date, and same time or same rules, I guess. No wedding talk. Just go have fun. And then once you get down to that last date, it's your wedding day. So a little bit more
There
fun.
you go. Little Pavlovian dog kind of thing. You just ring the bell and
Sure is.
give him a treat every
Yeah.
6th of the month and say, here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
eventually-
maybe he'll remember the wedding date
Yeah,
someday.
see,
Probably
there you
not.
go. At least the date of the month.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Tip number 4.
Yes. Tip number 4. Using magnets instead of pins on your boutonnieres. Or I guess they've come out with a lot of different options. So magnets are those little pocket slide-in square things. We've just kind of moved away from the good old pins that no one likes anyways, everyone struggles with. Why not use something that's a little more functional and quicker?
One of our favorite, I always joke with people on the wedding day, because one of my favorite photos to take throughout the wedding day is handing the groomsmen some flowers and a couple of pins and then saying, okay, here, put this on your shirt. And then they look at you like,
I'm supposed to do what?
how do I do this? And then watching the variations on how they do it is pretty funny. Then they usually complain because they're like, the last time I had to do this, I was going to prom and my grandma did it. So I don't know how to do this.
Yep.
Selfish brag. If you go to YouTube and type in how to pin on a boutonniere, we have a video that's been circling the internet for several years, has hundreds of thousands of views, about how to efficiently do it if you have to use pins. However, using magnets or using these little squares, a lot of times what they do is they just wrap the flowers around a piece of cardboard that would fit inside of the pocket on your coat or on your vest, and it just slides right in and the flowers stick out the top.
Mm-hmm.
So easy, very efficient, easy for the guys to do, and they look great. They're sometimes they're a lot more durable than the flowers that are pinned on the outside too, as you start to
I feel
dance.
like those ones always end up sliding around or twisting sideways or something. So having them in your pocket makes them.
So anyway, if you have to use pins, that's great. Follow our video. There's a crisscross pattern in the back that makes it a lot better. If you need to use magnets, that's a better option. That makes it a lot easier for people to understand how to put it together. Or best of all, put them on these little cardboard pin or cardboard squares, and then slide those into your pocket, and off you go. So awesome. Okay, so tip number 5 is to take pictures of your vows, assuming that you hand wrote them, or even if you didn't.
Tip prior to that is handwrite your vows.
Yeah, that's going to be that's down the list somewhere. I think we hit randomize on this thing, but handwriting vows is amazing, is awesome. But make sure that you take pictures of those vows and hang them in your home, right? A lot of times we think about, all of these important pieces of the puzzle, and there will be times throughout your marriage, I promise you, that you look back at these things and you go, oh yeah, this is why we did it, right? And having these vows on the wall, seeing something that you can reflect on or can look at constantly, just adds a real big piece to this puzzle. And you can remember what you got into this thing for, right? There's going to be some awesome days in your marriage, and there's going to be some hard days in your marriage. And sometimes those vows go help you on both sides of that story. So anyway, having them accessible. If you don't, if you hand wrote them and they're all on a piece of paper, frame that piece of paper, put it on the wall, right? Do something artsy with it. Make sure that those things are displayed, because these are the promises. These are the things that make this journey with this person fruitful and awesome. So anyway,
back to crazy fun stuff. Tip number 6. And this is, if you are doing a cake cutting and you do not want cake all over your face, use forks instead of your hand, because your husband's a little bit less likely to stab you in the face with a fork than he is to rub a piece of cake on your face with his hand. So
there's always a tense moment at a cake cutting. It's like, okay, if they're using their fingers, is there going to be the cute, like, oh, here's a little bit of frosting? Or is it going to be full send, like raw smash? Here's some cake all over your face.
Or here's the entire top of your cake in the back of your head.
I've seen that done before. Yes. We had a story where the groom, it started as an innocent, here's a piece of frosting, and then it went one more step, and here's a bigger piece of frosting, and then here's a piece of cake, and then she walked away thinking that was the end of the problem. And he decided that the rest of the wedding cake was a good option to take and smash in the back of her head. This is an actual true story. This actually happened. It was traumatic for all people involved, except for the dog that was outside that got to eat all the cake that hit the floor after it was out of her hair. So anyway, yes, if you're worried about that, if you don't want cake frosting, or if you want to ensure that you're not going to get cake smashed in your face, using a fork is a great way to do that, or a spoon, or whatever it needs to be to feed your person without, getting stabbed in the eyeball.
Yes.
Okay. Here's a big one that I have seen multiple times throughout my wedding career. So tip number 7 is to hire a babysitter if you have small kids on your wedding day. So if you're the bride and the groom and you have kids already, hire somebody to be there to take care of your kids throughout that process, especially if they're little kids, right? Here's what usually happens in that scenario. A lot of times what happens is mom or dad, grandma or grandpa, or maybe a sibling or somebody like that that's already used to being around these kids, takes over that role and responsibility. But the problem is, now they're a babysitter and not fully engaged in the moment. One of the things that this broke my heart one day when I saw this, because the little girl, bless her heart, just 2 and full of energy and can't sit still for more than 4 seconds. And mom, who was the mother of the bride, was in charge of keeping tabs on this person. And I saw this little girl just needing attention, but mom was so preoccupied with the little girl that she didn't get to fully embrace the whole moment of her daughter saying yes down the aisle, right? That to me is a little bit of a bummer, right? So if you've got little kids, hire a babysitter, pay a college kid to come hang out at your wedding, feed them in food, and give them, let them be part of, hanging out with the kids for while some of the bigger things are going on, whether that's the ceremony, whether that's, toasts and all that kind of stuff. Keep those responsibilities out of the hands of the people that want to experience this day with you, right?
And pretty much everyone on your guest list is someone, hopefully, that you want there to experience this. So, I mean, handing it off to a second cousin or I don't know, like an old friend or whatever, that's fine. But you also invited them to be there to enjoy your day. So by hiring someone that's, some random college kid or some babysitter that doesn't have the same intentions as everyone else being there, it takes some stress off of you and parents and everyone else.
Lets everybody present in the day, right? And we're going to talk about that in a couple of these different tips, being present and ways we can add people to be present, right? So, so if you got little kids, hire a babysitter for your wedding day.
Yes. Tip number 8, there are not many ways that people typically incorporate grandparents into their day. So finding little things where you can have them kind of be a little bit more in the day is fun. So having your parents sign as your witnesses of your marriage license. I mean, it's a great way to incorporate them. You get extra photos with them. You have their handwriting for the rest of your lives, and just it's a little bit more meaningful than like some random friend. I mean,
Right. Yeah. We've seen this in a couple different ways, right? So grandparents, the first time I ever saw this happen, it was two grandmas that got to sign it.
yes,
And oh my gosh, they were so excited
so
about it.
cute.
And the photos were amazing. And these people, again, they don't have a designated, you know, area of the day that's theirs. You know, mom gets the process of helping getting ready. And then there's a dance at the end of the night. And with dad, it's a lot of the same things, right? But grandparents kind of get left in the dust sometimes. And if that's a huge relationship to you, letting them one of two things, either let them sign your marriage license, or one thing that we're seeing a comeback on is flower grandmas,
Yes.
right? If you don't have any little kids, if you can't find little kids that want to do this, or you're scared about what the little kid's going to do with all the eyes on them, flower grandparents are cute. They're awesome. And they have a lot of fun with it.
Yes.
And it gives them something that they can do throughout the day. So anyway, find ways that those most important to you can be a part of your day as best possible. Okay. Number 9, hire a taco or a coffee truck to show up towards the end of your reception. There is a whole different vibe at a wedding when you've had dinner, you're on the dance floor, the drinks have been flowing, the music's blaring, and it's awesome. And then all of a sudden a taco truck shows up. First of all, it's going to help you alleviate a lot of these bad decisions when it comes to driving and drinking. But it's also going to add everybody needs some extra food by that point.
Yeah, it's that time of the night where you're like, I either need to eat something or I need to fall asleep right now. So your night's on that verge of either ending early or getting way too out of hand. It kind of just like is that perfect little buffer where you get that extra snack. I mean, and it doesn't have to be a taco truck. It can be literally anything. Have someone pull out a late night pizza bar or late night popcorn or something. Just adding that little extra snack in there is usually a good idea.
If you make it more of a food item, then there's odds earlier in the night because of the craziness of the party that you probably didn't get to eat. As a bride and a groom, you probably didn't get to eat your entire dinner.
True.
Very few brides and grooms finish their full plate of food while it's dinner time. So having a taco at the end of the night just magically appear off of a dance floor. I've been to several weddings. I was a groomsman in a wedding where this happened, and oh my gosh, that was the greatest thing ever. To be able to have something to enjoy after the party the party was still going, but anyway, taco trucks, coffee trucks, cookie trucks, pizza trucks, whatever. Bring one to you. All good at the end of the night. Number 10 is coordinate, don't necessarily match perfectly when you get to your wedding party attire, right? So does everybody have to be in the same shade of blue? Absolutely not. Can you give people, you just say light blue is our color and let people use that and get variations on that thing as you go, right? I know my wife complains sometimes about some of the wedding dresses or some of the bridesmaids dresses that they've been. Yeah. So like, how many times are you going to wear, or how many times are you going to rewear a wedding or a bridesmaid's dress? Right?
Probably never.
Especially if it's going to be one that's going to be matching with everybody else's, right?
Yeah.
If you give everybody the opportunity to say, hey, here's roughly the color palette, stay within that, they're more likely going to have something or purchase something they're going to reuse and not just have it sitting in a closet. Plus, it adds a really cool aesthetic to your day, right? It doesn't have to be everybody, same purple, same green, same blue, whatever your colors you're using. It gives kind of a cool little variation, but you can tell the importance of the people because they're in that.
Yeah, and you can kind of like variate the levels of that too. I feel like if you're really dead set on one color, but you still don't want them to match, just let them pick different styles of that dress in the same color. Like, don't make everyone wear a spaghetti strap long flowy thing when, I mean, not that style doesn't necessarily fit every person's style. Like, you could have bridesmaids that absolutely hate spaghetti straps and bridesmaids that want sleeves, and just let them variate that.
Lots of different body types that look better in different things or what they're comfortable with as they're out there.
Yep.
And it goes both ways. It goes with the men, goes with the women, right? I mean, I've seen lots of guys that have, different color suits or different color shoes on variations, right? They're in the same ballpark, but they're a little bit different. So don't necessarily have to match perfectly. Let people coordinate, and that can be a really awesome way to make your wedding party look pretty cool too.
Number 11 which we've talked about many a times, and we will tell you this all the time because it's so important. Make a family shot list of your photos that you want before the wedding so that you don't forget anyone.
There are two reasons that I think that the family shot list is important. Number one, it keeps that portion of the day moving efficiently, right?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, trying to get all the family organized to get photos is chaotic and crazy and whatnot. But if I've got a list that has everybody's names on it and I can just start barking these people's names, boom, 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 and we get that one done, and then we go to the next one and boom, 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 boom. Two things happen. Number one, you can get everybody organized more efficiently and more quickly. And number two, you don't forget anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you, if you are in the moment trying to remember all the combinations of the people that you want to have photos with, you're going to forget somebody. And 3 days later, you're going to go, oh my God,
Yep.
we forgot so-and-so, or, oh, we didn't get this one, or whatever, right? Don't give yourself the heartache there. Make the list, let your photographer run with it. And
most importantly, let them go with it, read down the list, get everything on the list before making adjustments. Because, I mean, on the day of, you're probably going to add a couple other options, but do not try to sway off of your list before it's complete. I've seen this done. One of my best friends got married, and we were going down the list, and mom and dad wanted to run off and come back. And because of that, because they didn't want to follow the list, she didn't end up with a photo with just her mom, which is one of the harder ones to miss.
right.
But making sure you're sticking to it.
For sure. Usually what we do is we have a list that gives everybody an order, and we go through this whole thing. And then after that, it's like, okay, what did we miss, or who do we want to add? Hey, so-and-so maybe showed up that we weren't expecting to be here, or Aunt Betty's got an option or got an idea. Hey, we need all the sisters together, or we need all, whatever, right? At the end of the list is when you start making adjustments or making variations on the thing. Stick to the list because you've thought about this. You've created this combination list. And you even if you think you've done it, let the photographer do their job. Let them go through this process and go, yep, no, this one's this way, this one's this way. It's gonna save you all the effort. We've got lots of compliments through this process. Like, oh my gosh, you guys have done that so quickly and so efficiently. One of the biggest headaches I ever got into with a bride was that we were going too quickly through this process. Right? We were so efficient with this thing. There was other aspects on that story, so we'll let that one be. That's going to come up in another wedding tip here soon about eating on your wedding day. But make your shot list, follow it through, and then if you need to make adjustments or additions after that, it's perfect. So, okay, number 12. I guess what we can do is we can kind of lump these two together, 12 and 13. So the first, number 12 is to do a first look with your dad on your wedding day, right? Dads have a special part in this whole process, right? And sometimes a lot of what they usually do is financially driven, right? But giving them a space in this day to enjoy this is a big moment for them, right? If your daughter is now walking down the aisle, or your son even, making sure that you give them time to be a part of that is important. Number 13 is do a first look with your groom on your wedding day, right? Giving yourself another 5 minutes of this day to be with that person. It is so baffling and so crazy to me that this whole day comes about because it's about you two, right? It's about you and your groom. How many minutes on that day do you think you guys get to spend together? Just you two? The answer is like -5.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless it is thoughtfully planned out.
Unless it is, lined out and defended to the death. Giving yourself time to do a first look, it does a lot of things. Number one, logistically, it gives you more time throughout the day, because what you can do now that you've seen each other before the ceremony, you can get a lot of photos out of the way. You can get your bridal party photos out of the way. We can shrink that time of weirdness between your ceremony and your reception, where everybody thinks, that these photographers are just taking way too long. And yes, but there's a lot of things that we have to get through in that section, right? So if you can take the bridal party photos out of that section, all you have to do is some family photos and then maybe a couple photos, right? That makes that part more efficient, and you can get through this part of the day. Great. Because you guys have seen each other now, you can do all those types of photos before the ceremony and give yourself more time to enjoy the party later. It also takes a little bit of the nerves out of the day, right?
Yes.
On both sides. We've done these, and it's super fun to watch people get really nervous and really emotional with this. I've seen guys with white knuckles because they're just so nervous and tense, and they're squeezing their hands and whatever they're doing. And then as soon as they see their spouse, all of that washes away. The rest of the day is in a whole different energy space, and they're like, yeah, cool, let's go. Right? You're centered, you're grounded. It's all kind of coming back to what this whole day is about, and it's about you two, right? So carving out some time for your father, carving out some time for your groom on that day is an important way to kind of ease those tensions, take some of that stress away, and add some logistical benefit to it as well by being able to do other things before the wedding at that point. So do your first looks.
Yes. Tip number 14 is create a wedding day emergency kit. And these come in all sorts of fashions. If you'd like to look at ours, we have it posted on our website, the www.floatingleafstudios.com/2togspodcast. There you can download that list and kind of make it your own. But there's a lot of kind of important key pieces, whether that's your extra bobby pins, extra Q-tips, and the list goes on and on and on. But
we've got, I think there's probably 20 or 30 different items that we've got inside this little kit, ranging from Tide pens to crochet hooks to earring backs to Band-Aids to bug spray to, I mean, all the things that you could think about, right? It seems like every time we go to a wedding, we find something new that we should add to this kit.
Yes.
Because something happened or we put in some allergy medication because we went to a wedding one time and our eyes almost swelled shut because of the pollen that was in the air. I actually stole these from my wife's wedding kit when we got married, but we've got brides that wear high heels when they're getting married out in the grass. And these little stoppers that you can put on the heel portion of this keep you from aerating the grass everywhere you walk, right? And getting stuck in the mud and the grass as you go. So all these little things, if you Google this thing, you can find lots of ideas. If you want to come to our website, and you can find our specific emergency day kit. But having that available to you and on hand when you need it, whether you get a cut or whether you get a headache or whether your dress rips or whether you're, get a bug bite and it's showing up in all your photos, whatever it is, right? There's something in that kit that can help you. There's gum, there's breath mints, there's,
just literally anything that you could think of, like something goes wrong, it's in that box.
Yes. So emergency day kits are important. Hopefully you don't have to use it, but I would almost guarantee that there's going to be something that you're going to be grabbing out of there at some point.
I don't think that I've ever been to a wedding where I haven't used something from our emergency kit. So
right, yeah, safety pin, bobby pin, whatever. tissues,
all the things.
There's a bunch of stuff in there. So create yourself a wedding day emergency kit and keep it close by because you will need it at some point. Okay, so number 15 is to have the immediate family sit on the opposite side of your head table. I've seen this done a couple times. It's not very common, but it's actually really fun because what it does is it puts all of those people, all of those most important people of your day all in the same place. And you can, it's like a big communal family dinner type of thing at that point, right? Like the energy and the excitement. From a photographer's perspective, it blurs that whole section because now I got to shoot through people to get your reactions and stuff if we're doing toast and all that stuff. But it's a cool way to incorporate them instead of sticking them all in a corner table and saying, okay, here's your place, but coexist. Keeping everybody together, I think that's one of the that's one of the draws to these big communal tables.
Yeah, I've seen that new trend of where people, I mean, even with circle tables, are kind of like putting them together in like a snake pattern so that it's basically just one giant family dinner. Sure. I think that's a really cool new trend. I like it. Yeah,
keeps everybody talking and lets the communication and all that stuff happen throughout the process. It's a good stuff. So anyway, if you've got lots of people, keep them close, right? Put them at your table and let them enjoy that moment with you as well.
Tip number 16, we've talked about this a little bit before, but to have a completely unplugged ceremony, you can't just leave a sign out back that says we don't want phones. You're going to have to do a couple other things, and whether that's having your officiant remind your guests to put their phones away or making a basket. Everyone has to dump their phones in the basket before they walk in. There's just more to it than a sign out back.
So for those that I think we're all pretty familiar with what an unplugged ceremony is, but what this is basically keeping your guests from using their cell phones, their iPads, their electronics to take photos, at least during the ceremony part of it, right? I am not opposed to there being lots of cameras from lots of different people at a wedding through the reception and all these different places, right?
Yeah.
But during the ceremony, for two reasons. Number one, it helps people be present, right? If you don't have to, when you pull a camera up and you're trying to do all these images or catch that one shot that you're going to put on your Facebook page or Instagram page later, you're taking yourself out of the moment, right? You're not fully embracing that. You're not engaged with these people. And you're kind of, you're missing
watching it through a screen.
Exactly. You're missing the point of this whole thing. The second thing that happens, and this is where the photographer usually gets upset with this whole thing, is when those screens and those cameras start to get in the way of us doing our jobs by documenting the things that are happening, right? Here's my theory, and every photographer has their own theory on this, but I think that the aisle to us is the most important real estate at a wedding ceremony, because that allows us the quickest access route to the things that are happening at the front, whether that's vows or first kisses or all that kind of stuff. As soon as somebody reaches their arm out into the aisle with a cell phone, or even worse, an iPad, I don't think we do that much anymore because I think phone cameras are a lot better, but I've seen it done with iPads. It starts to take over, and it starts to be a hindrance as opposed to something that allows the professionals to do their jobs, right? So if you want people to keep their phones off throughout the wedding ceremony, there's a couple things that I think work well. Number one, give them an opportunity to do it. The beginning of the ceremony, say, hey, everybody grab your phones. Here's the people. Let's take 5 minutes let's take 30 seconds and everybody get your photos. Ready, set, go. And then the bridal party turns and looks, and the couple turns and looks, and everybody's smiling. They're having a good time. Cool. And everybody's got their phones out and they're clicking away and they're doing their thing. Okay, great. Now we're done. Please put them away so that we can be present through this whole process. They have people here to do a job by taking pictures or doing a video, and you will get all the photos and access to all the stuff that you ever want. But please just be present, right? That's one way to do it. The way that I think you need to do it is you need to hire a couple of like teenage little kids, right? Like a little like a 10-year-old maybe. Give them a pair of sunglasses and an earpiece and a basket, and make them sit at the back and just confiscate people's phones. That would be the best. That would
be so good.
That would be the best way to do this ever. That would get the point across, right? We have walked into so many weddings that have a sign in the back that says "Unplugged ceremony. Please don't take photos during the ceremony." What happens? Nobody reads it. Phones are out everywhere. People are doing the same thing all over the place, right? Like it's got nothing. Just a sign by itself is not going to do the trick. So if you want to completely unplug your ceremony, have your officiant make an announcement, give them an opportunity to do so, and then put it away. And then just realize that there's probably going to be somebody that's breaking the rules anyway, and move along. Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. So tip number 17, we are going to create a wedding day timeline, and your job is to stick to it as best as possible. If you go back and listen to our first episode in this podcast, we talked all about the wedding day schedule and the wedding day timeline and how to create that and what to include and what to not include. But having some sort of a timeline, again, it's not written in stone. It's not, it's not the gospel, but it gives you a kind of a general flow over the day and allows you to keep things moving and to be efficient with it, and to, from a photographer's perspective, it keeps all of the things coming that we know we have to take pictures of throughout the day. We're not spending more time on something and less time on other things. We kind of have this rhythm that we go through as we go through that. So creating a timeline, whether you have a vendor that helps you with that, your photographer would be a great person to help you with that. Or if you got a wedding planner, things like that, those are great people to help you. But create the timeline and then try your best to stick to it as best you can.
Yes. Number 18 would be to remember to take mental photos as your day goes on. There's a lot of times we're going to get caught up in all the things that are happening. It's exciting. It's maybe a little bit stressful. Hopefully not. But just take some mental pictures. Take some time to breathe it in.
The way that I've seen this implemented in the past is having people pause, having the officiant physically tell the bride and groom, hey, turn around and take it in.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes we get in a rhythm. Sometimes we get in like, okay, we got to keep going. Okay, we just talked about the schedule. Now we got to keep going. We got to keep going. There's a lot of meaning in this day. There's a lot of things that you just need to stop at a certain point and just go, wow, look at all these people that are here for us, right? Let's enjoy the fact that this is what it is. Let's imprint those pieces of the day that we want into our brains by taking the moment to smell the roses, literally or figuratively, if you have roses.
Yeah.
But but spend some time taking those mental photos on the day. Yes, your photographer is going to hand you thousands of awesome photos, but maybe I should say hundreds.
You don't set too high of an expectation for
Thousands is
us.
a little aggressive, right? But hundreds of awesome photos for you to come back and remember all this stuff. But for you to take 5 minutes and just mentally take those snapshots through your day.
It will help slow it down. It's not going to rush you through, because I feel like when things start happening, if everything just kind of flies by. So if you're not stopping to take those moments, your entire day is over in the blink of an eye.
For sure. This next one goes back to one that we've kind of talked about in the past about, scheduling first looks and stuff. But number 19 is to schedule 5 to 10 minutes alone with your spouse on your wedding day, right? Just the two of you. Again, this party is got a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, and you would be surprised at how little of this entire day you two get time to each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spending 5 minutes, whether that's after the family photos, before the reception starts, or maybe this is before even the ceremony goes, right? Find 5 minutes, go off in the corner, regroup, center yourself, tell a joke, whatever you got to do, just to remember the meaning of this day and remember what you're here for, right? The whole thing you're here for is each other, right? So if you don't schedule it and don't defend it, you're not going to have it. So schedule those couple minutes here and there, and you'll be awesome.
Number 20 is, we've talked about this many a times. Don't stress about the last minute details that don't get done. Because as we said before, no one will notice other than you. If it's that last minute, it probably wasn't that important to begin with. Is it I forgot to put the photos on the table. There's like 2 photos I forgot, or a candle's not turned on. Like, there's a little things that are going to happen. They're going to probably not be exactly as you thought they were going to go, but you are literally the only person that knows. So
I know this is a little different now because you're planning your own wedding and you're probably taking notes as you're going to all these different weddings
sure
and
am.
going, oh, that's a cool thing, or oh, that's a cool thing. Have you ever remembered what you had for food at one of these weddings?
Only if it was really bad.
Okay. Do you remember what the walk-up song was at any of these weddings?
A couple that were really good.
Okay. In general,
no one else knows.
All of these things that the bride and the groom had to come out on a decision with, right, are pieces of the day, right? And there's a lot of the things that don't get remembered. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, there's a lot of big things that people will remember, like speeches. Typically, people remember things that are said in speeches. People remember your ceremony, that sort of thing, but they're not going to remember, I had to pay for a drink at the bar. That was awful. Or they're not going to think
her girls' dresses were different colors or different shades.
Yeah. Or she didn't give us any favors when we left the wedding.
Right.
If you're trying to save budget and don't care about favors, don't do it, because no one keeps them. No one remembers them. And they're cool, but they're cool for about a day. So if it's not that important, don't stress about the last few minute details, because again, it's in your binder, but that's about as far as it goes. Yep, exactly. Speaking of not stressing about the small details, this is a lot of information that we're handing you right now, and we want you to soak it in. So we are going to cut you in half right here and give you a part 2 with the other 20 of these next week.
Hopefully you're getting some good content out of this, and some, I know we apologize that it kind of squirrels and goes a lot of different directions, but sometimes that's exactly how our minds work. So we'll let you kind of deal with that. So come back next week. We'll talk about the other 20 of these wedding planning tips that it will still squirrel all over the map, but it will give you some other cool things to think about. So thank you for listening to the Two Togs Talk podcast, and come back next week for the next 20.
Sweet. See ya, bye.
Cue the dancing music. The head wobble.
Forget that I can do cool things with the sound on here too. I feel like a DJ.
There's a lot of buttons over there that we haven't usually used. Want your questions answered on the podcast? Are you newly married or engaged, or are you a wedding vendor wanting to be a guest on the show? Want weekly tips and insights sent right to your inbox? Send us a message at www.floatingleafstudios.com/2togspodcast.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.